Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 410. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah, good morning to you. Guess what? Huge, unbelievably magnificent show. Big show, you might say. Coming up this week, we did something for you. Not just showing up on Easter Sunday to give you a little Linux content. No, my friends, we took a walk down an avenue where we got punched in the face and robbed once before. Just for the purposes of your entertainment, both Noah and I have redeployed ownCloud version 9 this time. And we're going to give you our review and thoughts on something that has burned us badly in the past. I've got some new work cases for it that I'll kind of show you how I do them, and you might be impressed, especially if you've been looking to replace Google Docs and Evernote. So give our thoughts on that and how ownCloud 9 is stacking up. In the news segment, Red Hat is making the monies. We're going to tell you about a major milestone that they just busted through. Brand new fancy version of Gnome. I'll tell you about some of the great features in that. Also, some other news stories. But more important than all of that, towards the end of the show, in the caboose, as I like to call it, one of the most important things to ever happen to this show, Noah versus Emma in the Switch to Linux competition. A brand new development will be revealed in this week's episode. It's huge. A two-parter development, Noah. A two-parter. First part coming up here in the picks, second part coming up in the feedback segment, because you know what, Noah, I just mentioned it, because you know what? What else do we got, Noah? Noah. We got the picks! That's right, we got the picks. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so we got a little hyped. We're a little excited today because we've been screwing around on the live stream. I love this one, though. It's Maple, but not as you know it. And it runs Linux. What is the Maple? And tell me all about this, Noah. This looks cool.
I believe, so I think I actually typoed. I think it's actually maple syrup, but he writes it. And so the thing is, he actually had a super long explanation, and I have concatenated it down to, or condensed it down to what we can read on air. But I've linked to his entire explanation because it's super interesting if you want to know a little bit more about it. But he writes it and says, I'm writing to answer your question. In last episode 404, that Maine does not, in fact, have Wi-Fi. I've been working on a project for a local sugar house to bring remote monitoring of maple syrup operation run as a small family business. I enjoy a lot of the content at Jupiter Broadcasting, now delivering billable value from your content. And I will be becoming a patron over at patreon.com. I also checked out teespring.com and found a JB Polo, but unfortunately, it's out of stock.
Stay tuned.
If I were to find a JB Last, TechSnap, Tech Talk Today, BSD Now, or Linux Unplugged Polo in the near future, I would be sure to pick one up. Thanks for the great programming. Please keep it up. And he goes into there's some pictures that he has linked here, but
what am I seeing here? No, I'm seeing like a collection of wires and USB ports and sensors. Right. Like, what is this thing? He says the constraints of the project required an inexpensive, reliable monitoring system that could be monitored locally and online. The main monitoring points were located near the sugar house with a remote location 3,000 feet away towards dense woods. When I was first approached with this project 3 years ago, I was told by the owner of the company that we would, of course, make it happen within his budget. I had a trick up my sleeve. I was going to use Linux, Bingo!
Specifically Raspberry and the Raspberry Pis. The networking on the sugar house included two WRT54G routers bridged together to expand the Wi-Fi coverage across the property close to the sugar house. This links up to the internet through a MiFi device. Two FOSCam webcams connect to the Wi-Fi and to third-party directly through the MiFi device. There are two monitoring stations on site that allow the family to check in with the cameras whenever they happen to be.
Just to see how the syrup's doing?
The what?
Were they just checking on the syrup?
I assume the syrup and
sugars
and any of the other equipment and stuff like that. There are two monitoring stations that allow the family to check in at the cameras. The monitors are driven by two check-ins with the monitors are driven by two Raspberry Pis, which are the original Model B. The first one drives the display and hosts the web page for local traffic and grabs the image from the webcam every minute and transfers the files across the internet. Like I said, he has he wrote a novel on how this works. If you're interested,
that is some sort of record breaker. I don't know what kind of record that's breaking, other than maybe the most Esoteric, amazing way to bring something as low-tech as maple syrup in 2016 to the... This is unbelievable.
It's also the most, I think, intensive or descriptive runs Linux I think we've ever had.
Yeah, you guys got to check out, if you're listening and you have some time, go over to the show notes and look at the photo album that's linked in the Runs Linux section, because this is awesome. That's really cool. No, all right, so did I hear him tease that if we had a new Swaggy Swag, he might step up? Is that what I heard?
I think that's what he said.
Well,
I think, in fact, he specifically said that.
Yeah, he specifically. Well, as you guys know, it's no secret. Linux Fest Northwest is coming up April 23rd and 24th. We're going to be there, and something big's going down. Something really big. In fact, to get a little hint of it, you can listen to last week's Unplugged if you want. I teased a major Linux hardware build we're going to be doing while Noah's out in town. I gave some details about that in last week's Linux Unplugged. But here's the next step. This is part one of the big revelation that we'll be doing in the feedback segment later today. Part one, teespring.com/here's the thing, a brand new shirt to help people switch to Linux and support our efforts at Linux Fest Northwest and help buy some swag for some of the people that will be getting to switch and help with some of the costs. Teespring.com/here's the thing. It is a t-shirt, a hoodie, and a long sleeve shirt. On the front, a much requested, classier last logo above the breast pocket area. Nice and clean on the front, and on the back, here's the thing, ... It's Tux with the JB Rocket. Do you have a minute to talk about Linux? All uppercase, big, because Linux is big. Do you have a minute? This is a conversation starter to bring people to Linux, and it's also a way to support the show, and it's got 8 days left, teespring.com/here's the thing. You should be getting it in time for Linux Fest Northwest if you're making it, but this thing, you can rock this thing anywhere. teespring.com/here's the thing, available until April 4th. Super stoked about that. And just to give you an idea, because we're just going to, selling this is just really scratching the surface of our cost. Just roughly, like right now, we're estimated our hotel costs to be around $700. I think our current flight costs are up to $600 for that, and that's not even including some of the swag we want to buy to give to folks that come to the booth and things we want to hand out, maybe some custom stuff for people to make it to Linux Fest Northwest. So it is a massive undertaking. And like we're gonna be storing people here at the studio, which is gonna be very expensive. It's a big thing we do. We only do it once a year. We kind of go all out. And one of the ways we stay sort of non-commercial about it and not like sponsoring the crap out of these things is through initiatives like this, through our Patreon at patreon.com/today, and through this t-shirt at teespring.com/here's the thing. Now, be honest with me, Noah. Did you ever think we'd have something that awesome for swag? This is a once a time, like, I loved our 2016 swag for Linux Fest Northwest. This is super cool.
It's going to be fun. But I'll be honest with you. I'm excited for the swag. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great to give those out. But what I'm really excited for is switching a bunch of people to Linux.
That's right, buddy.
And getting a bunch of people running Linux and teaching System 76 a thing or two about switching.
Pow, 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 pow. Yeah, so there's a few things we want to accomplish. We'll give you more details later on in the show. But there you go, teespring.com/here's the thing. Support this show. Grab yourself some great swag that rocks anywhere, not just at Linux Fest. And what I love about it, it's kind of funny, because you're like, maybe you're feeling antisocial, right? You could just wear a jacket that day. It's got a gray shirt, and then when you want to start the Linux conversation, boom, take the jacket off. It's like how Clark Kent gets out of it. It's like Superman. It's kind of, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just putting that out there. Also, don't forget, if you want to hear about the big Linux build, 2 of them actually we'll be doing while Noah and crew are in town during Linux Fest. Go listen to last week's Linux Unplugged, because we got into it. And you should go listen to it, actually. Noah, you should. You should probably download it.
You find me the time, and I will sit around and listen
when you're coming over here. No, when you're coming over here, Noah, when you're flying over here, you should download and catch up to find out all the things you're going to be doing while you're here.
Oh, God, good. I'm glad that's all been figured out. That way, I don't have to figure out how to plan my time.
There's a whole list. In fact, oh boy, I got a few things I got to share with you. In fact, some things that you and I need to capitalize on that is happening internally in the crew that I have found out about. And we'll save it for the feedback segment. But first,
all right,
I'm going to tell you about a tool that came in very, 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 very handy this week, especially for this week's episode, but really every week. And that's our first sponsor, DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing to get a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean. Their rigs start at $5 a month. For $5 a month, you get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, because they all SSDs, Noah. You know it. One blazing fast CPU and a terabyte of transfer. They've got just about every darn distro you'd ever want to actually put in production. All the Ubuntus, the Fedoras, you got your CentOSs up there, you got your Debs, CoreOS, which I think is really awesome, and Fedora, FreeBSD. And what's cool about the FreeBSD and CoreOS, I know specifically, I would imagine it's probably a similar story for the other distros, but these two I happen to know specifically. DigitalOcean works upstream with the projects to make sure that you're getting legitimate stuff, you're getting it straight from them. When they deploy one-click images, let's just say of like Docker and Nginx and ownCloud, and you do a one-click deployment of that, you're getting it from upstream repo sources with their GPG keys. So when you're doing an update on the command line, you're getting the official packages, not like some sort of, we spun you up a custom managed server using our control panel that's super neat. No, it's legit inline upstream, DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code, here's the thing. A great UI, really well done, that's not too simple, but yet simple enough that even a total noob could use it, and an advanced user who wants to manage DNS, set up SSH keys, backups, private networking, transfer around the world, it does all of that. Plus, they have a straightforward API. Data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Portugal now? I don't know, man. They're going everywhere. Up in space, underground, in a lava layer. They got digital. You can put droplets everywhere. Use the promo code, here's the thing. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring Linux Action Show. No, you might sense a theme today. You might get a whiff that
Linux. Everything so far has to do with Linux.
Well, okay. That's really perceptive, Noah. Good job. Now, there's another theme in this episode, and that's ownCloud. And this next app pick actually works without ownCloud, and I would almost use it without ownCloud. But with ownCloud, oh, sweet, sweet baby juice. Check this out. It's called ownNotes. Your notes on your hard disk and in your ownCloud, and it supports Markdown. I'm just going to take a little victory lap here for a second. Yes, it supports Markdown. And I would like to show it to you right now. So I have it installed right here on my KDE Neon desktop. And I have, of course, the dark theme installed. So I think it looks pretty darn good. Noah, do you like my look? So come on, give me Markdown right there. It's got syntax highlighting like you would like and all that kind of stuff. And what it does, Noah, is in real time, it's writing to the sync folder, and it's also using the ownCloud app that you have to have installed on your ownCloud server that has an API to actually write to that server. So you can edit these from ownCloud, the web UI, or using this, or just from a text editor on the file system.
You know what I smell? I smell a new way to do show notes.
Maybe. And I don't think it does. I don't think it does real-time collaborative editing, but it's damn close. And so there are ways for exactly that kind of thing. If you just don't need real-time to use this, you could have this, like on a spouse's computer or something like that, and you both could add notes to this and sync through ownCloud. So it's called ownNotes. It uses GitHub-flavored Markdown in the note area. And it syncs very easily as long as you have the corresponding software set up on your own cloud server, or you could use an offline mode. Works perfectly well for that. Has large editing. It will, if you don't know, like some of the Markdown for, like, say, an image embed or the date embed or something like that, it has shortcuts and one-click GUI options for that too. So there you go, ownCloud. It's sort of like, it allows you to use ownCloud as sort of like an Evernote replacement if you don't need super rich text in the editor, but since this is all Markdown, you could easily render it using 1,000 different tools quickly and have full HTML that's nice and clean and tidy you could use anywhere else.
And let's face it, most of the time when people want sync notes, it's because they're not doing full-blown text editing. If they were, they'd be in a normal word processor like LibreOffice. But when you're at least for me, when I want access to notes, it's things like that one specific really long bash command that I can't really remember, but I need it ever so frequently.
No joke. I was gonna save this story for the review, but one of the things that ownCloud came in handy for is before we go ham hauling and go pick up ham for a Linux Fest, I'm getting my toilet fixed in Lady Jupiter because she doesn't hold water.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ironically, it's called the Aqua Magic Toilet, but it doesn't hold any aqua. So before they replace it, they need the serial number. Well, the serial number is literally, once it's assembled, not in a user. You have to disassemble the top of the toilet to see the serial number. However, when we first bought the rig, they gave me a sheet of all the part serial numbers, this huge sheet of all the part serial numbers. Took a photo of that, recently uploaded it to ownCloud for this week's review. Sure enough, Thursday, I needed the serial number for the toilet. I went into ownCloud, pulled it up, it was right there. And it was that sort of that thing that I could probably access once every 2, 6, 8, 9 months maybe at most, getting repairs done. And so yeah, it worked really well for that. So and the fact that it's in my setup, it's on the file system works super good for me because I can just open it up on the command line in my favorite text editor. Speaking of the command line, that is our weekly project spotlight this week. Let's go away from the cloud and go something that you could do in an SSH session when nobody's looking. It's called News Betur. News Betur. Come on, Noah. I'm trying to get a rise out of you and I got nothing. I get nothing.
I'll go ahead and come clean because sometimes you just got to do that. I don't get the joke.
Oh, okay. All right. So News Betur is an open source RSS atom feed reader for your command line. It's a RSS feed reader that you can go out there. What do you think about that? Huh? Come on. From command line. So we went from ownCloud notes. Nothing. I'm getting nothing from it. I'm trying to impress you.
I'm Googling what Betur is because I'm trying to understand the joke.
It's well, you could also call it News Butler or News Butter or yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was just messing around with the name Noah. Hey Noah, how about you stop focusing on that part and focus on the fact that I just found a freaking RSS client for your command line.
And that is awesome. That is completely awesome.
Yes, it is. It is. You could SSH into a droplet or some mess like that, whatever you want. I don't care. I don't judge.
And here's what I was thinking. I was thinking when I'm on site working for a client and I can be inside of the terminal banging away on the keyboard because let's face it, most of the people that walk by, if they see me sitting at the computer and the terminal's open, they're like, oh, he's working, right? I could not be working.
Exactly.
I could be doing other things.
Exactly. I mean, it's beautiful. And, if you're one of those folks out there that likes to have your web browser and your command line and your email, or your command line, your IRC, and your email on the command line, then maybe you might like having your news feeds. Hey, you know what? Could be kind of cool. I'll tell you where it could be actually kind of neat. Drop-down terminal, dude. Drop-down terminal. Oh man. Yeah. Right? Like a multi-tab drop-down terminal. Tab 1 is like Telegram command line. Tab 2 is your RSS feed. And tab 3, it could be like, I don't know.
You know what I've started doing with the command line tools with the drop-down terminal is I will be working on something and then in the interim, like I'm working on it. Okay, now progress bar is loading. I hit F12, the drop-down terminal comes by.
Yeah.
I go back to, in this case, the RSS reader.
Yeah.
I go through that a little bit. It's transparent, so I'm kind of keeping half an eye through.
Right.
Progress bar's done, F12, go back to working.
Yep.
And I kind of swap back and forth that way.
That's almost exactly what I do almost all the time, except for I'm not doing RSS feed. Because the nice thing about having the drop down, the nice thing about the drop down versus using a tab or is I can still see the progress of whatever I'm working on. So I can drop the terminal down, work in another terminal, and look at. Yeah. And I know there's like Terminex and.
My terminal windows are transparent, but I can't get rid of them and bring them up. It requires either mouse interaction to minimize and bring them back up, or Alt Tab action. And if I have 50 applications open, then that takes forever. So the nice thing about the drop-down terminals, it is a single hotkey that I can pull it down and put it back up, which makes it really great for multitasking.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so there you go. Those are our app picks, and we have them all linked up in the show notes. Don't forget about Linux Fest Northwest. Very excited. Want to see a whole bunch of you there if we can. Have a great time. And then also support our effort and maybe start that conversation for a potential Linux switcher at teespring.com/here's the thing. All right, Noah, let's do the news. That's the thing.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Go to last.ting.com to save yourself on a Ting bill, or maybe even get yourself a little credit towards a Ting device, because they're all unlocked, no contract, no early termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. That's Ting right there. $6 for the line. So you get your phone, it's $6 for the phone line, and then just whatever you use on top of that, or a MiFi, or a tablet. If you have a device you just need to throw data in and use on occasion, that's perfect for that. If you have like a Raspberry Pi and you want to give it an internet connection, perfect for that. My buddy Chase uses Ting for his internet connection, for the backup connection for his alarm system at his house. Cut out the phone line on his alarm system. It connects to Ting immediately. He's used it to grab pictures off it on the road. It is a really cool service because it allows you to add internet anywhere you want with a $9 SIM. No contract, nothing like that. You just pay for your usage, or you go all the way up and you get yourself a full phone. Now, we sometimes talk about some really value phones, but one we don't often mention on this show, but I'm about to now for maybe the first time, is the LG Volt 2. This thing is just, it's not like it's the best phone out there. Let's not kid ourselves. It is a phenomenal value. So it's $66, shipped from Ting. No contract, no early termination fee, right? That's when you go to last.ting.com. $66. You own it outright. And LG is shipping the Marshmallow update to this thing. So you can get a fresh Marshmallow Android device for under $100 You only pay for what you use, and you can support this show. It's a really cool, and it's not like it's going to blow you away, right? But it's an LTE Android device with a freaking camera. It can do 25 megabits on LTE, which is awesome. And it's going to have Marshmallow. They have everything out there, right? They've got everything from SIM cards up to the Galaxies and the Nexus Eyes and the iPhones. But I just thought the LG Volt 2 was such an incredible deal at $66 when you go to last.ting.com and no contract, and you get Marshmallow soon. That's great.
You know, I have a friend that he switched over to Ting, and his parents live out in the total boonies. Like, I mean, you're talking like an hour to the nearest like gas station or grocery store, right? And so typically his family has always been on one of the big box stores because that is the only service that he thought he would have access out there. And even that does not work so well because they have to be in certain parts of the house to get coverage, stuff like that. So he tells me, he goes, this weekend I'm going home, and he like it was mildly interesting and mildly annoying because he was like live blogging over Telegram. So like every 5 minutes I was getting an update, and eventually I just muted the notifications and went back and read them the next morning.
Yeah.
But he had service all the way out to his house, which is unheard of because that never happens on Ting. Got to his house, had service in the driveway. He's like, well, this works. I can go out to the driveway and use Ting. I'm thrilled. Gets into his house, has service all the way around his house, and he ended up buying. He has a Ting phone and a Ting hotspot, the Netgear Zing, and so he said that he took his Netgear Zing in his bedroom and has better internet on his Ting GSM or his Ting CDMA hotspot than he did on their normal internet connection. And so he brought a tablet and was he was using his tablet to create a hotspot to get internet on all of his various devices out in the middle of nowhere. So like whatever it is that T-Mobile is doing to their network to get better GSM coverage, whatever it is working, because in the worst of the worst places, they now have better internet than some of the big major stores. Mm-hmm. And he gets a cost savings to Ting.
That's actually what's kind of nice with Ting is you can take advantage of a couple of different networks depending on which one's better in your area. So for me, what I would do on the road trip when I had a good CDMA signal from Ting is I would use that Netgear Zing to do anything where I didn't want to worry about going over a data cap because I didn't want to manage that or anything like that. And so with Ting, like on the road trip, that month, I have like a $45 bill for my data. And then next month, it's like nothing because I turn the line off. And it's nothing for like 5 months. And then I go on a road trip and I have like a $45 bill. I love it because I can manage it like that. But if you just want to support the show, maybe find out more about Ting, go to last.ting.com. And while you're there, maybe check out their blog because look at that. They got a short history on the Kodi project. And it's actually, look at this, Noah. It's nice. Mm-hmm. Check it out. Last.ting.com. Then go read the Ting blog, and you can find a short history on that formerly known as XBMC Kodi project. Pretty cool, Noah. Pretty cool. Check it out. Last.ting.com. And thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Red Hat's making the monies. So they were the first $1 billion open source company, and now they're officially the first $2 billion open source company, which is not too shabby. So their total revenue for its fourth quarter was $54 million, which is up 17%. In the U.S. year over year. And for the full fiscal 2016 year for them, which I guess is now, Red Hat's total revenue was $2.05 billion, which is up 15% from year over year. Now, what do you suppose they make all their money from these days?
Support contracts, I would bet.
Yeah, even though they're making huge investments in cloud and all that cloud, their subscription revenue was 88% of the total revenue. Their subscription revenue can largely be ascribed to Red Hat's flagship product for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. They do make subscription revenue for other products, but it's all about that Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We don't see any results from their partnership with Microsoft on getting Red Hat in Azure yet, because that's all still very new. But $2 billion. Red Hat's continuing to grow. What are your thoughts, Noah? What are your thoughts on this?
Here are my thoughts. My thoughts is that for a long time, especially early on in Linux, when we were kind of watching various companies come up and rise, we've seen companies do different things. We've seen some companies that sell out to various places. We've seen some companies that take huge compromises because they just to make a couple extra bucks, this kind of thing. And one thing I have always appreciated about Red Hat is no company is perfect. No company makes perfect decisions, but I'd say out of all of the various Linux related companies, I think the people that I have the most conversation with and have a positive experience from have to be Red Hat. And that primarily comes from every single one of them seems to see value in the Linux desktop. And so if there was ever, and so I think we can all agree that money just basically equals power. I mean, and so we have one of the largest open source companies that has a very, very, very strong, code of ethics and has a very tight moral compass. And that is the company that is now in charge of $2 billion. And I think that's a great thing as a community, from a community standpoint, because they have core values, they have integrity, they have a moral compass, and they're following that stuff. And so that's the company that I want to see grow. And I'm sure that there are tons of things that Red Hat do that we don't agree with or that I don't agree with personally, and I'm sure we can point those out. But on the whole, they're a group of very, very dedicated Linux enthusiasts, and I think it's great that they're absolutely killing it. They're totally, if we measure score by how much money they're bringing in, then they're winning, and I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And so this week, speaking of kind of a Red Hat semi-related thing, a new version of Gnome came out. Gnome, now I'm totally blue. 3.20. But the reason why I'm kind of like I haven't got a chance to play with it. I'm kind of like, it's kind of bad timing because I'm still on KDE 5.6 from our most recent episode. I've been really enjoying 5.6, so I've been sort of like, oh, cool, a new version of Gnome's out, but I haven't really gotten a chance to play with it. So I was looking through the new features, and you know what? I gotta say, I'm really happy to see that they're continuing to invest time in the Gnome Software Center. So they're making updates to like firmware and stuff super easy. Wayland support is like full on now. It's getting ridiculous. I really like how fast Gnome Photos has come. This is an editor, Noah, for Gnome Photos that allows you to crop and change colors.
Is that and the funny thing is, do you know how many times I open GIMP just to crop a photo?
Oh, yeah, that's the number one thing I use GIMP for.
No kidding. And it's funny because what I'm looking for, like GIMP is such an amazingly powerful tool, and 90% of the time I'm either rotating a picture or cropping a picture. So if I could just do that in like, a very simple photo viewer of sorts, it's 10 times better.
So that's just built right in, right? And then of course they have brand new sets of shortcuts with a screen where you can see them and set them now, make it really easy to see what shortcuts are. And I love the fact that they're getting Polaria actually put in a decent basic IRC client. It's not up to my needs, but I think it's pretty great. I think it's really a nice IRC client for basics. I had somebody that just wanted to try IRC for a little bit, and it was very simple for them to use that client. And Files has gotten some nice work too. So we're just all over the place, Noah, with lots of new features in version Gnome 3.20. And I wanted to play just a little bit of their video because they made one, and I thought, all right, let's give them a little airtime. I think it's pretty cool when projects are doing this. So the folks over at Gnome have put together a introduction video. They're going to cover some of the stuff I mentioned, but some of the other things as well. So I figured we'd give it a look.
Gnome is a worldwide community dedicated to creating a free and open source software desktop. The Gnome 3.20 release consists of the last 6 months of contributions from coders, designers, and writers. As a result, a dozen of Gnome's applications come with new features and a more attractive interface. Gnome Photos can crop your photos and apply filters to them. The Control Center has a revamped mouse panel. Software provides a seamless integration of sandboxed applications and OS upgrades. And furthermore, most applications now come with a keyboard shortcut window. Developers can look forward to an improved GNOME Builder, which now comes with XTG app building and project templates. GTK has stabilized its theming support with the move to CSS elements.
Yay!
GNOME 3.20 will be provided by many distributions soon.
And of course, it also means a new version of GTK is out. So as you watch that, Noah, did anything jump out at you as something that as a Unity user?
You're not gonna like this, but like the first 30 seconds of that video, all I could think about is, I just don't like the UI styling of Gnome.
Yeah, no, it's fair for you. It's fair.
it's not my thing. But and it's funny because like when I see things like the photo manager, if everything looked like that, I'd be all in. Like that dark, very like
professional looking.
Yeah. Professional enterprise video editing type tool thing that I really like. But the just the beginning, that plain gray stuff, just I don't know. It's just not my style.
So Fedora 24, of course, is going to ship with GNOME 320 by default. There is an unsupported PPA that gives 1604 users GNOME 320 right now as well, which is kind of neat. And it'll be hitting Arch Stable soon and SUSE as well, I imagine. So you can go get your hands on it right now. It's kind of funny it lands right now while I'm in KDE, but I am looking forward to trying this eventually. They're getting to a point now where there's some nice refinements, but nothing that jumps out at me is holy smokes. Interestingly, if you go look at the release notes, some of the more interesting work has actually been done in GTK itself. And, of course, a lot of that is whale into work and stuff like that. The future is nigh. Oh, also, there's been a lot of interesting – now that I don't have any specific news stories around this, but I saw a lot of release notes this week for different projects that are adding Vulkan support. You know, the new graphics API? A lot of things.
I'm a gamer now, so I follow these.
Yeah, of course, right. Yes, I forgot you're a super hip gamer now. They're working on a lot of different projects are already implementing Vulkan support. Like it's coming along really well. So I don't have a specific news item because I saw quite a bit of that this week, but I thought I'd just pass that along to you folks out there that are wondering how that's going. All right, Noah, that's all the news for this week. Noah and I took a walk on the wild side, at least for us. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And we took a plunge into ownCloud version 9, the brand new release that we mentioned recently on the show. It's out. We have it installed on our own servers, set up to our devices, and have been using it throughout the week. And we'll give you our thoughts. First, though, I want to mention our segment sponsor, and that's the folks over at Linux Academy. In fact, if you could go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged, you'd be doing me a favor. That supports the show, and it gets you. Heck, you're doing yourself a favor. It gives you a great discount over at Linux Academy, a platform designed and created by Linux enthusiasts for Linux enthusiasts. It's not just a feature of their overall platform, where they also have Adobe After Effects, and they tell you how to edit stuff, and they tell you how to do this, and they tell you how to be a motivational speaker. Oh, and by the way, you want to learn some Red Hat? Yeah, we got that. That's not Linux Academy at all. Linux Academy was built by Linux crazies. Kind of like, hey, Noah, right there? That guy! He's a Linux crazy.
I am.
Yeah,
I am, and I also use Linux Academy.
Yeah, you are a Linux exactly. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there. They got step-by-step video courses. Check this out. Over 2,355 self-paced courses where you can get experience with hands-on as you need it, instructor help when you want it, scenario-based labs so you feel like you've really done it and gained the experience, and graded server exercises. Automatically grade your actions so you can see just how well you did. The Red Hat stack, DevOps, Ruby, Android, Amazon Web Services, PHP, OpenStack, Python, the entire Linux stack, and Android development. All of it over there at linuxacademy.com. They got nuggets, 2 to 60 minutes long. You just do a deep dive into a nugget. I'm not talking about the chicken kind. Although you could eat your nuggets while you're doing a nugget. You know, right? Like double nugget. Nuggetception.
Yeah. Solve the hunger and the Linux all at the same time.
But also, if you're just super busy, they have an availability planner. You go in there and say, I got time on Tuesday, I got time on Thursday, and I got time on Sunday after Linux Action Show. Boop, 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 click, clip. And then like a computer from the future, like just totally maps you out a learning plan. It's some sort of alien technology. But they got it over at Linux Academy, so you might as well take advantage of it. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go check them out. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring this segment right here of the Linux Action Show. Really super brief reintroduction to my woes with ownCloud. So one of the biggest sync things, jobs that we have here at Jupiter Broadcasting as a production workflow is the Unfilter Show. The Unfilter Show is just gigabytes of clips a week. Gigabytes of clips a week, and you have a couple of weeks in there, and now it's a massive thing. Lots of files, or between 10 and 300 megabytes, sometimes as large as several gigabytes. Lots of them. And getting added to, constantly edited by multiple people whenever possible. Not a super simple thing. Not like crazy, but not a super simple task. And in the past, ownCloud 8 for me almost bit the whole farm. In the Unfilter workflow, just so you understand what happened really quickly, is I have a folder that I'm working within. I modify the directory contents of this working folder. I structure the clips and the layout of the clips to flow with the show. So they go in order, they're organized, they're sequenced. Then I take that work and I move it from the working directory up to the main production directory. I move it up one level. I'm just moving the files up one directory level. In sync services like SyncThing and BitTorrent Sync and Dropbox and SpiderOak, just the ones I've tested right there, including ownCloud. In everything except for ownCloud, they recognize that as a file system move operation, and it's just a relinking, and it's not actually removing all the files. With ownCloud, at least in version 8, it recognized that as a move and delete. So it executed the delete and move, and then ran out of hard drive space because it was saving copies of everything it deleted, and shut everything down. And so we lost the clips, we couldn't restore the clips, and it did manage to sync the delete command to all of the machines. So a week's worth of 2 people working hours and hours and hours, gone like that, 30 minutes before I'm supposed to go on air. It was... I felt sick to my stomach because it wasn't just that we didn't have a show. It was also all of that work by producer Matt and myself completely lost. Very devastating. And the cost of that was phenomenal. And thankfully, I had a laptop that I hadn't powered on yet. I powered on, made sure ownCloud didn't start, loaded X, grabbed a 3-day-old version of the clip archive, and started working from that. And so when it came time for us to test ownCloud again, it's not that... I mean, if I could have had unlimited storage, that probably wouldn't have happened. But I didn't have unlimited storage. I'm trying to work within a reasonable limit. And so, but I just felt like, never again. Never again will I ever be in that position. The network can literally not afford to pay people to work on something like that, and then all of a sudden lose it like that. Plus, we're unable to deliver for our patrons. It was just never again, I said. And so with that, I sort of unwound my ownCloud use. I used it sparingly for some things like CalDev and CardDev and some notes, but I began winding down my ownCloud usage thinking, I just can't trust it yet. And I kind of stepped back. And I waited for ownCloud 9 to come out. And so that's where I come at with ownCloud 9. That's why it was sort of a big leap for me, because that personally was almost... I felt sick. I was just devastated. And then the whole time crunch aspect about it too, 30 minutes before I'm supposed to be on air. And so best case, I had to delay the show, a late start. It was really bad. So it was hard for me in a way. It sounds weird, but it was hard for me. So do you want to briefly recap your ownCloud disaster?
So we had a major deployment of some software at a medical clinic, and they had we were at the time what we were using ownCloud for was basically a company-wide storage system. And so when people would go on site to use things, we had ISOs of various recovery media, and just resources for our techs to use. And it was 3 of us that were on site out at this. It's a clinic, but they have, and basically we were installing the software, and there was a certificate file that had to get uploaded for each individual user and then placed on the computer. And obviously the entire idea of a certificate file is if you don't have that exact file, then you don't have access to that particular account. And so what I have found is for smaller files, the ownCloud Sync works just fine. It goes back and forth, and you don't run into any problems. When you get into larger files, or in this particular case, we had the ISO, we had the Red Hat ISO for the server, we had the ISO for the software, we had a zip file full of all of the certificate files, and then we had the documentation of all the stuff, like what the passwords were and all that stuff, and it was all inside of an encrypted tar ball thing, and we dumped that to ownCloud. And what ended up happening was, for whatever reason, ownCloud got out of whack, and I didn't notice right away. And so I just assumed that every time I installed a new computer that these files were getting replicated over. And so one day I go to, they had a machine failure, and I went to, I opened my laptop and I go to pull down one of those certificate files, and I realize it's corrupted. It's not there. It's not working right. Well, that's weird. Why would that happen? So I think, oh, no big deal. It's one computer. I've got 10. I go to a different one. That file's not working. Yeah. So then it starts making me think, well, how many of these files are not working? It turns out,
so the files are there, but they're like empty files.
0 kilo. That's exactly
I've seen that too. Yeah, I have seen that problem as well.
So 8 out of the 10 files, 8 out of every 10 are not working. So then I start thinking, oh my God, how much of my data is destroyed? So I start going back. all the clips from Linux Fest 2014, like the original capture stuff that we had from last year off the machine, that's all gone. All of the interviews from Self that year, those were all gone. Like there's a couple of them that are there. Most of them are totally, you can't even open them.
Tons of stuff. There's just tons of work. And now, of course, I got to pause you because somebody listening is going to go, well, hey, Noah, how come you didn't have that backed up? Why didn't you have that backed up?
I did. In fact, that was the only reason I noticed that some of them were missing was I went to one of the backups. Like there are certain things they didn't have backed up because here's the reality. The self interviews, we shoot them. And yes, I keep them because why not if you ever want to go back to them? But the reality is the important part is I get them to you, you air them on the air, and then really, I don't really think about them again. It'd be nice to have them, but I don't really need them. Thus, I don't spend any real time making sure that they're always backed up and on 5 different places.
No, they're up in the cloud. They're up in the cloud. Right.
I just threw them somewhere, and it would be nice to have them. I don't really care that they're gone, but there was data that I definitively needed. And, the thing is, we had some of that backed up, and that's why we didn't lose the contract with the client is because we had those certificates backed up in another place. But the point is, I shouldn't have to do that. That should have never been a problem to begin with.
Okay.
Now, all of that said, as far as I'm concerned, ownCloud, if without the file syncing feature, is completely useless to me. Logging into the web interface is great when I'm on site and want to pull a file down, but I'm not going to spend
Let me see if I can jump off right here because I want to talk to you about that because here is where I was stuck with ownCloud. So version 9 has some really nice new features where, first of all, they're working on scalability quite a bit. Full federation, which we're going to talk about more in a moment, and the collaboration is very straightforward. We're going to talk about all of that in just a moment. And also I'd refer to our interview with Joss from, what was it, last week or the week before, where he covered some of the highlights. But I want to stop you there because I actually disagree. I actually think ownCloud is better when you don't use it for sync. I think if you say, and you know what? I think if you sat down with some of the ownCloud folks, had a beer with them, you said, hey, Frank, what's going on with ownCloud Sync? I mean, if you could have a little better, would you have a little better? And you know what I think Frank would say? He'd say, yeah, it's something we're always trying to work on. We're trying to make it better. And if you go to their bounty source, you'll see that they have over $1,000 right now on their bounty for their file sync to support just the changes in a file. That's kind of a fundamental thing that most sync products have had for a long time. And so I believe it's not actually ownCloud that is at fault here. I believe it is C-Sync, which is the underlying library that ownCloud relies on for their client sync. And I think to really do this right, they have to own that entire sync stack, and they have to stop using C-Sync, or they have to dramatically improve C-Sync. Either way, so I would argue with you right now. I'll disclose. I guess I'll put it this way. I'll disclose my bias up front right now. I don't use ownCloud for file sync. I'm going to use SyncThing. And I'm moving anything that I can over to SyncThing. And I'm going to continue to use SyncThing for any file syncing. Now, that said, I will propose there is actually a way to integrate the two. So A, not a big deal. And B, I will propose there is a way to migrate from proprietary systems into ownCloud 9. And C, I will argue there is really no need for ownCloud Sync when you do it this way. So if you're ready, I'll walk you down my setup. Okay, no.
Right, walk me through it.
So here is what I really wanted to accomplish. And I'm just at the early days right now of getting there. But I wanted to accomplish an Evernote killer. I am so sick of being stuck in Evernote. It's good on mobile, but I just don't like it. And I don't like that there's not a desktop version. And I don't like that it's on somebody else's computer. And I don't like that they don't have a Linux desktop version. So I want to replace Evernote. And so I wanted to see if I could have an Evernote Plus. Something that was mine, that had additional stuff that I could collaborate with Hadia. Because going forward, I'm trying to come up with ways that... So in Lady Jupiter, I don't have a home office where I can stash all of my documents, and I can have this is where so here's my couch over here, and then over here is where I have my file cabinet. I'm just going to go get my files from when I bought the RV, and I'll just reference that from 3 years ago for this question that just came up. That is literally not a reality for me when I live in a Class A motorhome, which is a choice I made in order to be able to afford to be able to do this as a living and be able to do shows on the road. That's my choice. But now I've got to figure out a way to make that work for those really practical things like taxes and child support documentation and divorce paperwork and truck paperwork and RV purchase paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. You know, when you own a small business and you have all of that going on, there's just so much paper. It literally is like a stack up to here, and up to, which is by the way, from my dick to my boobs. If you're listening. Right. If you're listening, my stack of paperwork goes from my dick up to my boobs, which for me is pretty. You know, that's a decent amount of paperwork. And so what I wanted to do was, and I'm already at this stack, and I have to come up with a solution ASAP because I am drowning in paperwork, and I don't want it to go in Evernote, but I have to digitize it. I have to digitize it, and I need it to be private, secure, and something I can trust. Well, now I'm looking at rolling my own solution. So I have come up with a workflow that mostly works for me, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So what I have done is I have combined with an app called Scannable, which is probably available for Noah's operating system. And Scannable takes a picture of documents and then OCRs it and scans it. And then I'm saving those as files, and I am uploading them to my ownCloud installation, where I have documents. I have photos, which photos are just things that we want to share between like Hadia and I. So we have like a directory of a bunch of different photos of like the kids or vacation places that we go to. And then I've done something else, like which is kind of nice, is I've been able to take advantage of the shared contacts. So, and I've only got, I'm just beginning. I've got one contact in here right now. But these are the people that we call when we needed to make repairs to Lady Jupiter. Now we have a shared spot to go get all of our shared contacts. So instead of having like a Google account or something where we have one ownCloud login, we share everything in one ownCloud login. We set up our contacts. We set up our documentation folders. And the one more thing I've done, which is kind of neat, is I've connected a couple of external storage services. Because, I have it on a 40 gigabyte droplet. So I've set up a couple of external storage here. Noah there in that box below me. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Those guys are out here cutting down logs right now on Easter Sunday. Unbelievable. So
they're dedicated to nothing else.
Noah refuses to use like SyncThing or anything to actually share production files with me. And what he does is he uploads it to a Droplet FTP server around like 3 a.m. and then has me come in the morning and download it to my computer before we start. And I always have to go dig up the login. I have to go because I always usually have a different computer. So what I've done now,
Noah never sends that stuff to him with the message of the upload is done.
Right. And so now what I've done instead is I've preemptively connected the FTP mobile login to my ownCloud server. So now I just log into my ownCloud server. It manages the login, and I can pull it down. I did the same thing with my Dropbox. So when I do need to connect to Dropbox, I can pull files in or out of Dropbox. It's available to anybody that logs in as this account. I have this connected to Dropbox. I've also experimented with connection to S3, so I can have tons of storage. So this is working really nice for me. So I'm able to use the photos, I'm able to use the file storage, I'm able to use the contact stuff, and I can add that as a sync service to my phone. So I'm syncing that contact information that I add in ownCloud to my phone. So when I make a contact in there, it is immediately available for Hadia as well. I make it in ownCloud, it shows up on her phone. She never has to interface with the web if she doesn't want to. It syncs immediately because I set it up on her phone. Same with the calendar. So we have a lot going on in April. We've got the crew coming in. I've got spring break with the kids. A lot's going on in April. There's a lot for us to schedule. ownCloud provides a facility for us to have a shared calendar. When we make a calendar, when I make a calendar entry, which I prefer to do it on the computer, it shows up on my lady's phone. But she prefers to do it in the mobile interface. And when she makes an entry on her phone, it shows up on my web interface. When I need to access something like SyncThing or Dropbox, I have it connected as a folder in here, Noah. So I can still access things that are in SyncThing or Dropbox or whatever you're using. I don't know what you use. Do you use any file sync stuff?
No. ownCloud sync. That's it. He thinks to be fair. So you are woefully under presenting this. It's not like, oh, it's kind of inconvenient that you're making me download. Like every time I get like a rant of like how.
No, I honestly
to download all this
so
stuff.
as somebody who wants persistent tools available to them so they can do their job, as somebody who collaborates with people all over the country in media production, and as somebody who probably has certain things that he always wants to have access to, like maybe bookmarks or some text files, any computer computer you set it up at, it boggles my mind that you don't see the usefulness of something like ownCloud or SyncThing or something like that. Like it literally, like when you were just a listener of this show and you would hear things we'd talk about, you'd be like, I should try that. It might make my workflow better. And then you do it and it would. Yep. This is one of those things. If you actually did what I'm saying, it would make your job better. It would make your workflow better. It would make you more money. It boggles my mind that you don't try this.
I will try. You have my word.
No, I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to to me, it's obvious. It's a slam dunk. And then the question comes, it is undoubtedly useful. I guess that's the premise I'm trying to say, is that it's undoubtedly useful. Okay. Yeah. Well, if we can agree that there's some usefulness to this utility, then we have to also agree, just based on previous experience, what we learned in this show, it's always best when you host it yourself and you control the data. And our only real best bet for that is ownCloud. And what I would propose to you, Noah, is wrap your brain around how you can use ownCloud without syncing, and then use SyncThing for actual syncing. And I'm telling you, man, if you did these things, I really think you would see you can de-Googlefy. You want to get out. You don't want your calendar and your contacts and that stuff syncing to Google anymore. ownCloud, you can use ownCloud right now with your Android phone. You can sync all of the calendars, contacts, notes right now to ownCloud. You can use QNote Sync then to access those same notes from your desktop. And then when you don't have access to your desktop or your phone, there's a web interface you can use to access those same notes, contacts, and all of that stuff.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The last time I used SyncThing, I had to start it up, and then I visited like a local host web server, copied like an ID, and pasted in other things. Is that still how it works, or they've advanced a little bit from that?
Well, I used to hate SyncThing, so you got to understand where I'm coming from. I was like, I don't care if BitTorrent Sync is going to charge money. I'm using it. Now, a couple of things are really nice. SyncThing added an announcer server. So what I've done is I've set up a DigitalOcean droplet that's an announcer server. So I just connect one of them. I just connect I connect my desktop to that one droplet, and that one droplet then tells my SyncThing client about all my other things. Automatically populates them for me. Super easy. But what it really is now is it's kind of like almost like a Bitcoin key. I give you a key, we have a key. And we can see each other.
But where does that key get stored? This is the start of my problem.
There is a SyncThing GTK UI that makes it really easy to do all of this.
Right, but what I'm saying is, so my laptop dies, crashes, whatever, so I have access to zero data. I reinstall Ubuntu. I boot into Ubuntu. Now, how do I get all of my data to come down without having any access to my data?
Yeah, okay, you got me there, because you got to have access to this information. Where with the nice thing with the ownCloud sync would be you just have your username and password, which you have memorized, and it all pulls down.
Right,
that's true.
Right. So here's what I started. I started with the one-click deployment, as I think you did on ownCloud, right? And primarily, I was going more for actual file syncing than I was the web UI. To me, what the web UI is useful for is I am not at my computer or something that I own, but I need access to some of that data. Then I can log into the web UI and pull that file down, or maybe a lot of times I'll push a file up. I need to save that screen cap or that picture, and I'll deal with it when I get home.
Yeah, that would be really useful too, actually.
Well, it does. It works really well, and when it works, and so I started with the Federated server, and it lasted about 20 minutes in my mind. And Chris, this is really where the rubber met the road. Is I stopped and I went, one of the biggest reasons I'm not using Google Drive or Dropbox is I don't want it stored on somebody else's computer. I want it on my computer. And now, even though I'm paying DigitalOcean for this droplet, it's still not my computer. Somebody else paid for the hard drive and put it in their computer.
In theory, I guess, does it pass the we would like access to your data center test? And the truth is, if they had a legal U.S. warrant come in and they needed access to a server, they would grant access to it.
Well, so then what I ended up doing was I went and found I picked up.
Hold on a sec. If you're super paranoid, you could host in another country or something.
Yeah. Or what I did was I ended up just getting I took one of these old 1U Atom super micro servers. We had a bunch of them lying around. You can buy them on eBay for like $80, and I put in a 120 gig solid state drive and installed ownCloud, and that was a good process. And I don't have the link in the show notes, but it'll be there before we publish them. Of exactly the steps of setting up ownCloud server, and of course I'm doing it on CentOS, which is another thing. Was there was no option of operating system with the one-click deployments. You're going to get it on Ubuntu, and so I used CentOS 7, got ownCloud set up, and that's the ownCloud server that I'm actually going to use now. Because like Chris, I've been burned, and I also don't exactly trust ownCloud Sync. And to be completely honest, Chris has not said one thing in this entire episode that has given me more reason to be like, well, this time it'll be different.
Yes.
Basically, you bypass the whole sync solution. But what I've done is,
which Joss did was not necessarily a good idea. Joss did use the sync, Luke.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to use the sync. I'm just not going to use it with anything I care about for a while. And basically what I've done is I replicated what I had on there before, a bunch of video files, some small certificate files, some documents, and I put that all, it's basically like, it's about 20 gigs of useless data that I don't care about. And I've put it in there and I have a copy on a flash drive. And periodically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and open a file and modify it a little bit, close it, open it, play a video, close it. And after 6 months, if all of my data is still there and all of it is intact, and I will know because I have the originals, I can see what files were there, make sure every one of those files opens and plays. If after 6 months that works, I will go whole hog.
I have a suggestion. Can we make an addendum?
Okay.
I mean, I'm just going to put this out there, but how about we do this?
Okay.
How about you and I use it with the full like sync and everything to distribute all of our production files that we use for LAS. And because if it breaks, we'll just, you could just don't put your only copy in there, A.
Okay.
And then B, if it breaks, you just use the FTP like you always do, and I'll go pull it off FTP.
All right, deal.
So, and then what we could do is I'll use the sync client, you can use the sync client, well, and let's use we're going to have to play with the federated server stuff, and because what I'm thinking is we use the federated server stuff to share like a production folder between the two of us, which should then sync to both our machines.
Okay.
And because the ownCloud instance I'm using now, I'm going to stick with too. So if
good.
You finish yours up, I'll finish mine up. I'll get SSL turned on. You already have SSL, right?
I do.
Yeah. I'll get SSL working on mine. Did you use Let's Encrypt on yours?
I did.
Yeah. I think and you've done a how-to on that before, so I'll just follow your how-to to do that. All right. So why don't we take just a second and talk about federated sharing, because that's how we're going to pull this off. And this is one of the things that's seen the biggest change in version 9 of ownCloud. So they've had it before. They called it like federated cloud sharing or something like that. Now it's been jazzed up a little bit and a little easier to share a file with another user on a different ownCloud server. You just need to know the federated cloud ID and enter it into the ownCloud share dialog. And Noah, double check me if I'm getting this right, but your ownCloud federated your federated cloud ID for ownCloud is username at ownCloud instance, the full URL. So it'd be HTTP.
The FTQ,
yeah, the fully qualified domain. HTTPS or HTTP, actually I think it has to be HTTPS, fully qualified domain / ownCloud if you need it, and then it's username at that is so it's username at HTTPS : your fully qualified domain / the path to your ownCloud server. For Noah and I, it's at the root of our domain, so we don't have a slash there. That's all you need to know to share a file from one to basically connect two ownCloud servers together. And once you share a file, that is across both ownCloud servers, they've become essentially federated, which is really neat. And then if you add that cloud ID to your contacts, the share dialog would automatically show Noah every time I type it in there. So if I add Noah's federated cloud ID to my contacts, I can then just type Noah in my share dialog on any file and any folder in ownCloud on my instance, and it will show up on his instance.
And I believe, if I remember right from the interview, once you do one user, the entire directory gets sunk so that if you add, like, for instance, Angela on your ownCloud instance, she will pop up in my share to dialog.
I think I do kind of recall him saying that. You're right. I do remember that. So that's pretty slick. And one of the things that's nice about ownCloud, so I've connected it to SFTP external storage, and Dropbox successfully. I had issues connecting to Google Drive and Amazon S3. S3 is just complicated as hell, but Google Drive kept giving me OAuth errors. So this to me is, if you think about it, a nice first step. But what I would really like, if I could have a wish list for an ownCloud feature, go Plex Media Server on me, right? Give me I just give Noah a login, and my ownCloud server shows up as an option on his tree, and he can see as much or as little as I give him access to, because maybe I put him in a group and that group has access. It's with Plex, you don't just have access to a person's one episode of a show or one movie. You get access to their whole library. Now, I like the ability to share a single file. Don't get me wrong. And they can generate a public URL so you can just share it with anybody. I like that. But I also would like to say, hey man, you can have access to everything. everything that this group has access to. And maybe you could do that if you did it at a high enough level in ownCloud, but I'd like it to be a little more streamlined, a little more Plex-like. But that said, I like this functionality, and I think if you and I did like a last production folder, and we shared that root level of the last production folder using our cloud IDs once you get a domain name set up.
I have a domain on the one. So, and that's what I was going to say. So all the little issues that we've been bunking through today, that's because this is the one-click deployment. And like I said, I used it for about 20 minutes to see that it works. That reminds me, another thing. The ownCloud client that is in 14.04 is not up to date enough to sync with ownCloud 9. And so it gives you an error. It says the username is incorrect. That is not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is you just need a newer version of the sync client.
Yeah.
But those issues, all of that stuff was because I played with it long enough to get that stuff worked out, so I knew the one-click deployment worked, and I could kind of see how ownCloud worked. And then after I got done with that, I spent literally the rest of the weekend working on my private server, and so the one that I'm actually going to keep and use, and that has a fully qualified domain name. That stuff is also because I'm using it. It's just the one click I didn't bother.
I want to jump on your point. You mentioned the packages in Ubuntu 14.04 for the ownCloud client are out of date.
Right.
ownCloud has been at the forefront of one of the projects out there that says, our web app is moving way too fast for your slow repos. Do not install ownCloud from the Debian repo. They were one of the first projects to come out and say that. Before Docker was a big thing and delivering things in containers was a big thing. Frank, we actually, like 2.5 years ago, or maybe more now, 3 years ago now, I guess, we interviewed Frank, the founder of ownCloud, and talked to him about this very problem. And it still continues to be an issue. And what Noah just talked about, it underscores this problem. If you go to ownCloud's website, Noah, they have download links that actually take you to the OpenSUSE build service.
Right.
And then you can get a repo or just the deb or whatever.
And install the deb, worked just fine.
All right. So real quick, just along this line of thought, though, a little bit of drama happening over on Debian. And I'm just going to, you know what? I don't even want to get into it, but I'll just link to it in the show notes. Maybe ownCloud packages are getting pulled from Debian altogether. It is a fight between you know what? Maybe I'll talk about it more in Linux Unplugged, because it's coming down to a fight between the traditional way of delivering software on Linux and the way web developers with their web applications deliver software. And they both have major advantages. And Martin on the Debian mailing list nailed it. If you're curious about that, I'll have a link in the show notes. It's really dramatic, though, and I don't really know if it actually fits in a review. But you can go read it if you want to. So I have the ownCloud client installed. I'm running it under KDE right now. I'm syncing to my server. We'll figure out finish off the federated ID, and then maybe we can do like a follow-up in like, I don't know, when the audience reminds us in like 6 months. Somebody out there, set a calendar reminder. Help us out. And then we'll do a follow-up. But in the meantime, and you think about it, we should do it soon, because for Linux Fest and also for Self, there's going to be a ton of stuff that we need to sync.
I can't imagine how upset you're going to be if I start uploading files to FTP while we're sitting in the same room.
It does feel barbaric. I'm just saying. You're like an animal. You're like an animal. You could at least use SFTP. No. All right, so that's
Alan on that one.
So basically, our take is before we wrap it up, I should actually say my take is this: if you are an ownCloud user today, if you are on version 8, and you're wondering should I upgrade, I would say the answer to that is absolutely yes, without question. It is time for you to upgrade. The way to have a sustainable, successful ownCloud implementation is to do every upgrade. Whew, I know that sounds really scary. But this is something, like for myself, this could be a generational product that I use. If this goes the way I want, this is something I will be using in 10 years from now. And so Joss has talked about this, and they've always done a great job of updating their blog. They have a time to upgrade to ownCloud 9, which I'll link in the show notes, that talks about it. The way ownCloud is structured, the way they're designed, the way their support system works, it is absolutely in your best interest to upgrade. Here's the top 5 reasons. ownCloud usage in the last year went from 2.4 million to 8 million users. And what that means is the newer version has way more users than the older version. And what that also then means is, as a project, their priority, their alignment is going to be to that new 6 million user base or so over there that's using the new version, not so much to the older base that's using the older version. And also they want to move ahead, right? So as a project, it is where their focus and their attention is at right now is absolutely on the latest version. And I know that's a little uncomfortable, but if you even fall behind a little bit, you fall behind just a couple of releases, it can be a major hurdle to upgrade. So, upgrade. Also, once you start sharing, there's only certain features available in the newer version. That's going to take off fast. And backporting is limited to security fixes for releases that are older than the latest one. So, if you're on one or two behind, if you're on two behind, no updates for you. And if this is something where you have private information, which is likely if that's why you moved out Dropbox or something else, that's also a major consideration. So when you become an ownCloud user, you are also committing to keeping this system up to date. You are committing to doing future upgrades. That is the recommendation from the project. And as somebody who's been using ownCloud since at least version 6, but I believe even if you look at the archive, probably version 4, I can absolutely tell you, if you skip those upgrades, it will eventually bite you. So when you become an ownCloud user, you are also committing to that. I'm pretty comfortable with that, and because the ownCloud project recommends you update, they're taking a lot of steps to make that work pretty well. And they understand a lot of the user base is going to be doing that, and that's one of the reasons why very quickly, now, for like, I don't know, at least like, it's from what I recall, last 2 releases, maybe more, Joss has an time to upgrade blog post where he goes through all the details. So there you go. That's one thing to keep in mind, but it truly feels like, I guess, it's getting there. It's actually getting there. I don't know about the sync. We'll give you our feedback on that. But like all that other stuff, geez, this is really going long. But I did have one couple of bits of negative things to just mention really quick, which most of you probably don't care. But the iOS app totally sucks balls. It's so bad. It's a major, major bummer. It lets you poke at your files. It has some sort of upload capability. But what I really needed was the ability to be able to scan documents and then send them to the ownCloud app like I can with BitTorrent Sync and SyncThing. Doesn't happen. That totally sucks. So that's kind of a bummer. And one last thing. I was hoping I could replace Slack or Mattermost or Rocket Chat with ownCloud for my personal use at home, like family use. For the life of me, I cannot find the Bookmarks app in ownCloud. Like, it's just been removed in version 9. I see no documentation about that. But one of the number one things that my lady and I need to do is bookmark places we want to go and our thoughts on that, and then share those bookmarks, and then have a discussion about those bookmarks and those links. And the fact that they remove that is a major bummer, because that's like the number one thing that we're using Slack, Mattermost, Rocket Chat, like all 3 of them are in deployment right now, is like, here's a link. Here's what I think about that link. I like that it previews that link. Let's have a discussion about that, and then go back a week so we can find it. That they remove that bookmarks functionality from ownCloud hurts, Noah. It hurts. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Telegram. No, I really enjoyed ownCloud. Like you said, I'm leaving test data in it for 6 months. I refuse to put anything actually important in ownCloud. And last time it was like I got sucked like quicksand right into this hole. Like I started with I was just going to put stuff that I had in other places, and I was only going to put duplicates in ownCloud and then have that available because cloudiness and butts, whatever. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, screw having local copies. It's so much easier. If I put it in ownCloud, it'll be on all my computers. And that's like I got sucked in the first time. That's not
happened to me too.
Test data only for 6 months before I do anything important.
That's
Unless
exactly
you
it.
get me into this whole production thing, then I'll do that. But
that is boy, you nailed it. You summed up exactly, and that is the precaution I will be going in with, and we will report back, and then maybe eventually we will be all in. And I am very excited about the future, because at least if nothing else, I have a spot for my online documents that I feel good about, that I feel it's under my control, and has a super badass domain. That is Linux Action Show's look at ownCloud 9. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of The Big Show. But before we get out of here, I want to thank System76 for sponsoring this segment of the Linux Action Show. They make powerful computers, and I mean they are wonderful, powerful computers to help you take Linux to the next level. Stop fighting with Linux and enjoy your hardware. Laptops, desktops, and servers. I want to give a plug for the Ratel Pro. I think this is your home server. maybe the Meerkat too, depending on your storage needs. But I think the Ratel Pro is your home server. Set up ownCloud on that on your premises. Look out the new Sable, or if you need a workstation for yourself, go look at the Leopard or Wild Dog. Or maybe go pro level. Go baller. System 76 makes servers too. You could go deploy one of those bad mamma jams right now. System76.com. Laptops, desktops, and servers. Stop fighting with your hardware and play with your Linux. Just tell them Linux Action Show sent you. A big thank you to System76 for sponsoring this episode. All right, so what was his name here? It is, that's right, it's Herb Miller Jr., or a.k.a. Harbinger of Death, is joining us on the line to talk about his ownCloud installation. Hello, Mr. Miller Jr. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and I like the Zamarian pronunciation of my name, by the way.
Yeah, I got a couple of different takes on it, depending. So, yeah. Okay, so we just got done talking about our experience with ownCloud. Tell me a little bit about your experience with ownCloud.
So, I mean, right out the gate, I haven't had any of the, syncing issues, what you guys are describing. I sync some pretty big files, embedded device images and stuff, and I haven't had any issues with that.
Are you changing the files much? I mean, so this is one of the things, right, is if you update one of these large files just a little bit, you have to re-upload the entire file.
You do, yeah, so it is time-consuming in that sense.
And it also means storage-consuming because it could be keeping a copy of the changed version on the ownCloud server.
Yeah, and actually I hadn't even thought about that until you mentioned it today, where it's like if you eventually fill up the drive, which I haven't run into that situation.
Yeah, it's stuck. What it does is it shuts down the whole sync system, which is a bit of a bummer. So how long have you been using it, and are you following every single upgrade? Have you gone from one version to the next version? Has that worked okay for you?
Yeah, that actually is not going too smooth. Yeah, I went from 8.2.0 to 8.2.2, and now I just... And, not having any syncing issues, but it's got a lot of weird quirks, like the login screen.
So I just lost you for a sec. Did you just say you went to version 9 and that hasn't gone so smooth?
Yeah. I did that today, and, I just noticed odd things. Let me look. I got a message at the top of it right now that says there are problems with the code integrity check, and I don't know if that's because of how I installed it, or I don't even know what that means.
Well, that's a new feature of version 9, yeah. Yeah, this
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it works. It's still syncing. I just...
So do you have it deployed on your own hardware or VPS? How are you doing this?
I do. I have it deployed on my own machine here.
On your LAN?
So, yep.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's on my web server, so it is on my LAN, but yeah.
Yeah. Huh. All right.
Accessible.
Well, any other notes, Mr. Harbinger?
Yeah, actually, I did want to throw one thing out there about the back end of it. I want to run it off of MySQL, but I can't because there's 3 different PHP versions of MySQL, the interface you can use. Like MySQLi, PDO, and a really old one that's been deprecated for years. And ownCloud still uses that really old one, which, of course, I won't install on my system because it's been outdated for years. So, reluctantly, I'm using SQLite. I prefer to use MySQL, and I'm not sure why they won't move forward with that.
You know what? If I get a chance, I will try to ask. Or maybe if somebody out there knows, they can let us know in the feedback thread. That is a good question. Well, all right. Keep us posted. Good luck, sir, and thank you for calling into the show. If you are on the line and holding and you want to chat, stay tuned. Maybe we'll pick you up in the post-show. But, Noah, we should probably get to an email, and I wanted to start with one that came in that probably was on some folks' mind out there. Luke writes in, he says, I watched Last 409 on Sunday live, and Chris mentioned that there's a DigitalOcean video talking about the pros and cons between software and hardware RAID, and I was wondering if you have a link to that video. Well, thank you to the resourceful chat room. We dug that link up, and we even time-linked it to when that gentleman joins the stage. You can watch the whole thing if you want. It's about an hour long, but when he comes on board, it's a pretty interesting moment, and he does have some interesting things to say about software RAID.
Unused blocks on your solid-state storage, and that was actually one of the main motivations to switching to software RAID, was to get rid of hardware RAID controllers so that we could trim through it. And it ended up providing a lot of other benefits. Rebuilds on RAID are also a lot faster. And Facebook in Linux 4.2 kernel, we don't run RAID 5 or RAID 6, but Facebook has been contributing quite heavily and has moved almost their entire fleet over to using software RAID as well. So I actually think the future is even further than software RAID, which is systems that are aware of the individual spindles, the individual disks that they're addressing. ZFS? Sure. Probably not ButterFS. That's about as far as I'll go. Sorry.
There we go. In fact, it's a great talk. He goes into much more detail about software RAID versus hardware RAID and some of the DigitalOcean details there. So we'll have that linked in the feedback section of the show notes if you guys want to watch all of that. Okay, no, you got an email you want to take?
I do. This comes in from Jared S. And Jared S. writes in and he says, Linux as a VM host. And he says, I'm an IT contractor and looking to start introducing my clients to Linux in various situations where it would be beneficial. I'm looking for a lightweight distro that to use to host for a Windows 95 VM.
Yikes.
The computer will not be connected to the internet. It will communicate with a large machine via an isolated network, though. The software that was written for the machine only runs on Windows 95, and of course, the company has long since gone under. I've successfully converted the current Windows 95 machines to VMware virtual machines, and I'm now looking for a lightweight distro to run the VM workstation player that will auto-launch Windows 95 VM on boot. Also, the machine is running 100% of the time, and it's only off when there's a problem, so it will need to be as stable as possible. Now, this sounds easy, but in order to justify using Linux to my colleagues, it will need to have a setup. We'll need to have an easier setup than, say, Windows XP. I say Windows XP, not 7 or newer, because the host will be on older hardware, and so it's totally isolated as not to be a security issue.
That feels old and limited.
The distro will need to be compatible with serial ELO touch screens as well as Windows XP. One would have to install Windows all drivers, then install the VM Workstation Player, and create a batch file to auto-start VM Workstation. There may be a case where there's no benefit to going with Linux, but I'm trying to ease my clients and colleagues into being more comfortable with it. To recap, distro requirements: easy to set up, compatible with ELO touchscreens, compatible with VM Workstation Player, and stable, will not be connected to the internet. Now, to answer your question in the way that you've asked it, I would say if you're looking for a stable, easy to set up Linux distribution that's very lightweight and that's capable of running VM Workstation Player, I'd probably say, and I don't know what you think, Chris, but something like Ubuntu Mate.
Yeah, if you're going to use the UI, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but if I would go about this a slightly different way, what I would do if I were in your shoes is I would set up a dedicated VM host, and I would not run it on VM Workstation. I'd run it in libvirt, and then I would import those VM because it can read the disk images from VM Workstation, and I would import those and have that being hosted on the server. And then I would use separate machines, and these can be anything. It could be anything from a Chromebook from $150 or a Chromebox to an Intel NUC to old workstations that you're not using anymore. And you install whatever distro you want and install Virt Manager to automatically start and connect to that particular virtual machine. And the great thing about doing that is you can clone that virtual machine like 10 different times, and 10 different people can access 10 different machines. You have 10 different workstations to control that single Windows 95 machine. If there's one workstation that's connected to a single piece of equipment and you want multiple people to make changes throughout the day, it tremendously increases your flexibility. Also, when you have from that idiot that opens up Google Chrome and goes and downloads stuff or cocks up the computer, you throw that workstation out and reimage it and put it back without ever actually touching your virtual host, or more importantly, the very, very, what I would assume by this point is a very, very, very delicate Windows 95 install. That's the way I would go about it.
I've never installed GNU/Linux.
There you go. That's a good call. That's a good call.
You want this to work.
All right, Noah, so we've been waiting all episode. Something huge is happening at Linux Fest Northwest. There is an Emma versus Noah competition to switch as many people to Linux as possible. Mm-hmm. And there's been a development. Noah, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, and I apologize.
Okay.
I got word about this about Wednesday, so I wasn't the first to know.
Mm-hmm.
There is some betting going on inside Jupiter Broadcasting.
Okay.
About Emma versus Noah. And so we need to get a handle on this, and we need to discuss this. And to let's just say I want to move things in your direction. I want to introduce something that I think will bring and amp up the drama. And we're going to let the chat room vote, and they're going to decide. Are you ready?
All right.
We need to officially introduce Noah versus Emma music. We have two choices. Okay. This will be the music that we play when we're discussing this absolutely important battle, and then we will let the chat room vote. Number one from Incompetech, because let's be honest, I couldn't afford to actually buy any music, so I'm just using freebie music. Number one from Incompetech is called, and chat room, you're going to have to vote, Clash Defiant.
Ladies and gentlemen, once a year, a competition
like never before in the history of computing. One man versus one woman and the entire world of Windows users. What do you think? Are you buying it so far?
That's a solid 8 out of 10 for sure.
Okay, all right. What I like about this is got setup, right? And it's building, and we can talk about it. Okay, are you getting excited, right?
I am.
Okay, so that's option number 1. And now, chat room, you're going to vote. Now, option number 2, I like this because it's called Hitman. And I'm picturing Noah, and he's like sniping Windows users, pew, and he's getting them to switch to Linux. Pew, Hitman. He's hired to switch them to Linux. Here it is. In April. Kind of at the end of April, actually. At a Linux conference. One man, one woman will switch as many people to Linux.
Yeah, I like number 2 decidedly better.
Don't sway the votes. All right, I'm going to drop the straw poll in the chat room right now. Chat room, you tell us, which one do you like? Here are your options. Option number 1. Right? Serious. Intense. Determined. This is a battle. It's building. You like this. Okay, that's option number 1. Option number 2. Cinematic. A once-in-a-lifetime event. Changing lives. Going out there. Into the wild. Finding those Windows 7 users who don't want to go to Windows 10. Somebody who wants to reinvest in their existing hardware. Somebody who's concerned about privacy and security in a cyber world. That's number 2, right? That's what number 2 says to me. I think
both of these from Incompetech, or where's this going?
Incompetech, yeah, Incompetech, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we're not investing a lot of money here, but we can use them, and then these will be the bed for when we're doing the competition update. So chat room, you have to vote. So you have to go to strawpoll.me/72034430 and go cast your vote. I'm going to see what the results are right now. Early results are, well, number 2 actually, Noah. So we'll let people vote for the rest of the episode and see where they wind up. But that will be
where they met.
That's right. And don't forget teespring.com/here's the thing to support the initiative. We're going to have music. We're going to have swag. We're going to have music, you guys. A theme song. Come on. It's a competition with the theme song. And soon we'll have a meetup. And I've been thinking about this, Noah. I think what you need to do, Noah, you got to focus.
I'm listening.
What you got to do is you got to get your head in this. You got to contact Jed. You got to work with the blog up there. You got to get groundwork in. Emma is doing practice runs, dude. She's doing practice runs in Denver.
I love how people are. Let me tell you how that started. I was having a conversation with her, and I was like, "Here are the things that Angela's suggesting for places. What do you think?" And she's like, "Well, I kind of like to do it like in a public place, just ask people." And I said, "Well, here are the concerns with doing that." And she said, "Well, maybe I'll try a practice run and let you know if it works, and then I could more defend." So I told Angela that, and then she told, I assume you, and like it's gotten around. But now people are telling me, they're like, "Did you know Emma's doing a practice run?" I'm like, "Yes, that happened in a conversation."
Yeah.
With me.
Okay. All right.
That's where.
All I'm saying right now, and if anybody knows, here's what I'm saying. Okay, there is internally, inside, and I don't know who all's in on it, but I have a couple of ideas. Internally, in JB, there is betting taking place right now on Noah versus Emma. And I think the odds are on Emma winning right now. And so what I want to do is I think you and I should get in on the action. Let's open it up to the audience. If anybody knows of like a fun, internet funny, just no thrills betting where we could bet internet cookies, I say let's see where the odds shake out, because the currency is burgers, and it is happening, and I want to get in on the action if nothing else. So I want to place my bets. If anybody out there knows,
I feel like that's equivalent to like a coup d'état, what is it?
What is it?
A coup.
What?
The thing where like where your own people are working against you.
I think people are just looking at Emma. Emma's a dog with a bone right now, and you're kind of like, yeah, I'll figure it out when I get there. And I think people are voting on are betting on the person.
I feel like that should tell you something.
Yeah. You know what? All right.
I'm just saying.
All right. We got to wrap it up.
Okay,
But it's going to happen. We need to pick the location ASAP. And if anybody in the Bellingham area has a suggestion of where we could go that wouldn't be interrupting people, because I don't want my boy to go out there and try to get people to switch to Linux and then get rejected because you're interrupting their meal or they're on a date or whatever. So I want Noah to have the best success possible. So I need your suggestions on where we could go during Linux Fest, like in the nighttime or something.
Right.
I'm going to try to get the crew to go in and work people for you and funnel them into you, so you'll have people coming towards you. Now, they can't do all the legwork, but my plan is we're going to have I probably shouldn't say too much, but let's just say we'll have people, and they're going to take care of stuff for us. But you're going to have to have your game face on, and we're going to have a great location. Conducive to switching. Bottom line.
That works.
All right, that's coming up. You can find out more in the show notes, and hopefully soon we'll have an update. So it looks like, before we wrap up, our winner is number 2, Noah, the Hitman, because you're sniping people. So, Hitman, where would you suggest people go throughout the week to find you?
Twitter.com/KernelLinux. Every once in a while, it's funny. I post random things on Twitter, and it's been very interesting to me because I wasn't a Twitter user prior to JB, and I've kind of tried to embrace the Twitter sphere. And what I have noticed is like the weirdest, like the things that I don't necessarily think are going to be super popular end up being super popular. So last week, I think it was, I had a client that was asking me for a specific distro, and he says, well, I'll go download the ISO. And I'm like, nah, I got a bag of flash drives in the car. I'm sure I've got it. And so I go there and I pull my flash drive out, and he's like, holy good God, you have a lot of flash drives. So I dumped them out on my desk and took a picture and put it up on Twitter, and it got like 140 likes. And I'm like, it's just a bunch of flash drives.
People have been there, man.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I liked your tweet too. Can you tell what I do for a living?
Yeah.
That's the Hitman, ladies and gentlemen, the Linux Switcher. He'll be switching people at Linux Fest Northwest. Stay tuned, soon we'll have a meetup where you can go to bring your friends and family over. Think of it as this. Your host on the Linux Action Show and their crew will personally switch your friends and family to Linux if you bring them to the switching event.
That's right.
Handcrafted switching, ladies and gentlemen. We'll set up their shortcuts for them. We'll log them into their Google Chrome. We'll make sure they can get their Facebook working.
I don't know if we'll log them into their Google Chrome. That would require their password.
Yeah, we'll write them all down. What? Shoot, that was my inside voice. Dang it. All right, thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of Linux Action Show. Don't forget to follow at Jupiter Signal for more information. Teespring.com/here's the thing, linuxactionshow.reddit.com, and jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for our lifetimes. Thanks so much, and we'll see you right back here next week. Teespring.com/here's the thing. It is a t-shirt or a hoodie or a long sleeve shirt. On the front, it has the often requested classy breast pocket last logo. And on the back, a brilliant here's the thing last logo with the JB rocket. Do you have a minute to talk about Linux? Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I love about this shirt. If you don't feel like talking about Linux, you wear a jacket. And when you want to talk about Linux, you flash this bad boy out there at teespring.com/here's the thing. Get yourself a tee, or a hoodie, or a long sleeve jacket. Multiple colors are available, and yes, friends, only 8 days left to get yourself a very limited edition last swag. Ladies and gentlemen, teespring.com/here's the thing. Help fund our efforts to switch more people to Linux and get out to Linux Fest Northwest.
And that's the thing. Back at Scale, the story actually begins like a couple years ago. I bought the best camera I have ever owned. I've owned and worked with a number of different professional video cameras, and I found like the sweet spot that I absolutely loved, which was the 150 from Panasonic. It's an amazing camera because it has a large sensor. So because everyone always evaluates cameras based on resolution. So they go, it's 1080p, it's a great camera. Well, not all cameras are made alike, right? And so the size of the sensor has a lot to do with it. You can have a 1080p camera for $30, and technically it has all the dots, but they're being exposed to a tiny little sensor. So unless you have like pure bright sunlight, the picture looks like crap.
Yeah.
And so the 150 had a larger sensor, and so it was great for doing interviews inside of halls and stuff like that. It also provided XLR phantom power, so I could use handheld microphones, which is why our interviews sound, I think, better than anyone else that I've ever seen.
Boom. Especially, by the way, underscore this point, it's really tough to do those interviews on the floor where it's like crazy loud. It's crazy loud. So yeah, definitely.
And the other thing I have to have is I need professional controls. I need to be able to look and say, it's too bright in here, I need to turn the iris down, or I want to grab focus on this specific thing, or I want this specific shutter frame. And you can't do that on cheaper cameras. And so I had the camera that I absolutely loved. In fact, I took it to bed every night like we had a relationship. And then FedEx destroyed it, and then I was really upset. And so I'm still in the process of fighting with them to get it fixed. But in the meantime, I needed another camera that I could use for Linux Fest Northwest because it doesn't look like this problem is going to get resolved by then. And so I started to think, well, if I'm going to spend money on another camera, I want to buy a camera that is specifically designed, that's going to work very well for JB stuff in general. And so the one complaint I had with the 150 is it's larger, it's bigger. And so I wanted something that was smaller. And it was funny because as I was thinking this, Chris posts inside of an internal thread, and he's like, it'd be really nice to start filming what happens when we do ham hauling. And so I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly the kind of problem I'm starting to try to solve. So I found a camera made by Canon called the XA10, which is tiny, but has XLR inputs, has the same size sensor as the 150, has the ability to mount a shotgun mic, or I can plug in my interview stuff, and it has like a manual focus.
So two XLR ins, manual focus. Does it record to SD?
Yeah,
it's tiny.
In fact, it has an internal 64 gig solid state, in addition to two SD slots, so I can either record to all three simultaneously, or I can record to one, and when it fills up, record to two, when it fills up, record to three.
Yeah, buddy.
But the nice thing is about having the two SD card slots is I can take one of your memory cards and one of mine and hit the record button and then say, here's your copy of the interviews, and then I have a copy that I can take as a backup, so if anything ever happens, they're safe. And so I've been playing with it. The picture is phenomenal. I'm super happy with it. I do miss, like, the nice thing about the 150 is everything had its own button. And so here there's a couple things that are in a menu. So that's
typical Canon thing there.
The reality is I only like white balance. It's nice to have a single button to push to capture white balance, but really when I'm doing interviews, you only set it once anyway. So it's not like we actually white balance before every single interview. So I think it will be, I think the benefit, oh, and here's the other thing I like, I will never have to check it again because you take this little screw, pull that up, and take this little screw and pull that up, and then take this little screw and do that, and this whole thing slides off.
Boom.
And that comes off, and then this goes off, and that's basically the same size as a normal little handycam. And so it will fit inside of my carry-on bag rather than having to have now I don't have to take two Pelican cases everywhere I go. I can just manage with one and keep this on my person. And hopefully that will keep it from getting broken.
I'm going to officially record this so Rikai can put this in the outtakes so everybody knows. I have a master plan. I think we're going to burn ourselves out on Here's the Thing. We will use it so much that it eventually will become numb to it.
You'll burn yourself out. I'm not going to stop saying Here's the Thing.
I bet you will.
If you say so. I've been saying Here's the Thing since 2002, 2003.
I know, but it's like when you break somebody from smoking by making them over smoke.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing.
Dude, it's totes a thing, dude.
Is it?
Yeah, it's totes a
thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, if it works, I will buy both you and Rikai Five Guys.